The Homeland Security Department has announced stepping up screening at 5 of the nation's big airports. For more on all of this, I'm joined by Dr. Kevin Campbell, an assistant professor of medicine at the University of North Carolina, and travel expert Mark Murphy. Dr. Kevin, I will start with you. The news about this patient dying of Ebola in Dallas. Are we prepared?
I think we're absolutely unprepared. I think that the fact that this patient came to a hospital with a travel history from Africa and a fever and was sent home and subsequently returned very sick shows that we are completely unprepared. And we have all this exposure now with these other people who may be carrying the disease, and now we have another patient with possible Ebola. I think we may see a cluster of cases. I'm very concerned. A
cluster of cases. Mark, to you. The president told us this couldn't happen here, and that, we've been told over and over again that U.S. hospitals are such high quality that you could be treated very effectively here without even a special remedy. Just, routine treatment would keep you safe. What's your reaction to this news today?
Well, it's the challenge that you have, which is when people are coming over here and they're having contact with somebody who's potentially infected. You have this incubation period. It's 21 days. How do you know where these people have been, who they've been in contact with? So it's not just the people coming from Liberia or Sierra Leone. It's the people they come in contact with who then get on a plane later and fly here that we have to be concerned about. And you're seeing that roll out here in Dallas. And so now the question is, how do we contain it? And that's when you get into
well, we've got a long way to go on this. Let's
Right.
get back to the doctor for a second here. Dr. Kevin, is our government just being too passive here? I listened to a lot of the press conference. I have to tell you, it wasn't reassuring. I know the tones were reassuring, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is sort of holding hands and, crossing our fingers and hoping and praying. That's what it sounds like to me.
I think you're exactly right, Jerry. I think that time and time again, our administration tends to drag their feet in getting things done, and now we have a real problem here in the U.S. The latest plans for screening, I think, are going to be completely ineffective because there's no one that's going to compel you to tell the truth on the questionnaire to get in the country. This gentleman who got here to Dallas lied on his questionnaire.
That's right. That's right. And we've talked a lot about that on this show. The 5 airports where there will be additional screening now, those 5 airports receive 94% of West African travelers. We show you a full screen with all of those. You see them here. One's in New Jersey, one's in JFK, Washington, Dulles, Atlanta, Hartsfield Airport, Chicago, O'Hare International. You see the list there. Mark, can customs agents do the kind of screening that's necessary here?
The answer is no. That's the problem with this. This strategy is one designed to intercept the people that are coming into the country from those affected areas. But what about those people that are exposed to those people from those areas that are carrying a French passport, a UK passport, whatever it happens to be coming here? There is no solution for that. So is this a feel-good panacea? Is this a frontline type of thing? What's going to happen on the second and third line? That's what we should all be thinking about and be concerned about.
So here's what the CDC put out this afternoon. Here's what this exit screening is going to consist of. Essentially, they're going to take the temperatures of folks from those countries who look like maybe they're having a fever. They're going to do it with their methodology is something that they don't even have to touch the person. They're going to have them answer questions about where they've been and what they've done, and they're going to do a visual assessment. Dr. Kevin, to you, are customs agents the right people to do this kind of work?
They're absolutely not equipped and not trained to do this, and I worry we put them at risk. The other thing we have to remember is that fever screening has been used before in Australia for SARS, and they screened thousands of people, identified 700 with fever, and none of them had SARS. So it's a very high false positive rate when you do this. So I think it's going to be completely ineffective.
Mark, you and I have talked a lot about this topic and the impact on the travel industry. SARS was a huge impact on the industry, as you know, some $40 billion, I learned today. What's going to happen here, and what can airlines do to get these planes clean? Because my understanding is that these planes are just not that clean.
Well, I think the airlines should adopt the strategies of the cruise lines. Cruise lines, you know, they know how to keep the ships clean. Yes, and
Cruise lines
think
where
I'm
people
crazy.
get sick?
You think I'm crazy. Norovirus is a thing you hear about. 20 million people get it on land, only 1,300 at sea. So that's a fact. When it comes to Ebola, that's a horrifying virus. But what you have to think about is the limitations to it. There's not a ton of it. So it's not everywhere. It's not as rampant as something like a norovirus. And if they keep it clean...
Before we go, let me get to Dr. Kevin. Should we adopt the procedures used by cruise lines where people get sick? Are you kidding me? Is that a good idea?
You know, I think the idea of sanitizing, you know, vessels such as airplanes is important. What we have to remember, though, is that if someone has Ebola and they've got a blanket and a pillow, the only way to dispose of that and not contaminate others is to incinerate it in a medical incinerator. So I think that's going to be a real big challenge.
That's what they're doing with a lot of the materials out of this apartment that Thomas Eric Duncan lived in right now. We're seeing a lot of that. We've got a long way to go, and I hope both of you will come back and talk about this. Dr. Campbell and Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.